So the principles of harm reduction is a very modernist approach. It has a lot of different facets to it. And while I'm not against every single facet of harm reduction, I am 100% against the needle exchange, simply because I believe it leads to enabling. I have personally gone door to door and talked to the neighbors around Hatcher, which is probably the most, they're getting the spotlight right now.
Right.
They're not the only group handing out the needles, but they are getting a lot of the public's attention for kind of some of the statements they've made and the way they're approaching it. So I've talked to the neighbors, and the neighbors don't like what's happening. Where that part of town used to be very peaceful, you now have criminal drug addicts roaming through their backyard in order to get to Hatcher. You have people walking on the street, bringing along all their belongings, some of which are stolen, walking in front of that business and making it very hard for that business or that home to feel safe and secure. And so you've got this issue of what kind of people they're bringing in. And then Hatcher has gone on the record as saying they don't allow kids at their facility. Now, that's not true. I'm not going to show it here because it's a private person, but there have been kids seen, and I have a picture of this, there's been kids leaving that facility. So a lot of the basic promises that Hatcher has made to the public have been broken. And so we're now at a situation where the public trust could not be any lower with Hatcher. And I think if Hatcher wants to continue operating the way they are, they're going to have to make some concessions. One-for-one is an idea, but my problem with one-to-one is what's going to happen when Hatcher offers their services 24/7 around the clock? I'm sorry, you're not going to have volunteers watching over at midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, right? Mm-hmm. So what kind of safeguards can we put in place? It's a very tough, dicey situation. There's two things I'd like to see, two proposals I've made, and I'm happy to negotiate these proposals. But one thing I'd like to have people consider is for every single needle that's handed out, the health agency has to pay a fee. Not a huge punitive fee, but a fee, and the money raised will help the city pay for cleanup and will help that effort. Because right now, when the city is called to go clean up a needle spill somewhere, spill's not the right word, but a bunch of needles somewhere, that just comes out of the taxpayer's pocket. So I'd like there to be a fee per needle. I don't know exactly how we would set that up, but I'd like to have that conversation. A second thing that I would really like to see, and something that really troubles me, is Hatcher recruits mostly people under 25 years old. I think we should have a policy that if you are a health agency, private or public, it doesn't matter, you can't recruit anybody under the age of 25 to administer free needles to drug addicts. The reason why is you need to have a medical degree, you need to have advanced medical training before you're anywhere near meth, heroin, addictive substances, and drug addicts. You need to have an education. And if you're 25 or under, chances are you're on your parents' insurance, and your parents don't want you anywhere near those substances. So those are two ideas I have that would be easy to monitor, that would be easy to put out there. And they're not the only solutions, but there's some ideas. And I'd like to have that conversation with them. I am free anytime to talk with Brandy and her people over there. I know that she is trying to do good in her own way, but we have to work on this, because right now it is not working.
Do you know how long the needle program has been going
needle
on?
programs in Humboldt County have been around a long time. Mm-hmm. I've heard 2002, 2003, and I believe all the coastal counties, even the more conservative San Diego County, I believe all the coastal counties allow and facilitate needle exchange. So it's not a new practice. Mm-hmm. But Hatcher's particular brand is a new practice. Because what they want to do, Scott, I don't know, I know you had them on recently, I haven't seen that yet, but what they want to do is they want to have a 24/7 facility. They want to have people on staff that test the drugs and in some cases help administer the drugs. And I think that's crazy. It's an illegal, the city manager, about 6 months ago at the city council meeting, the city manager himself said there's no good example of a needle ordinance. The reason why is it's an illegal activity. So if we're going to allow this illegal activity, I think we need to regulate it in a sensible way that the community is okay with. And we're not even close to that right now, because Pacific Outfitters, their cleanup team, as well as others, have noticed in the last 3 years a stunning rise in needle litter, a stunning rise. And I think that can only be put at the feet of Hatcher as to who's to blame. Because if other organizations were aggressively handing out needles, well, then it would have been going back to as long as 2000. We would have seen more needle litter, but we've only seen this rise in the last 2 years. And that's why people blame Hatcher. It's because it was seen in the last 2 years.
There's been some discussion that if more attention were paid to programs of this nature in countries outside the U.S. that seem to have some modicum of success, and possibly building a model which is more based on that it might be an idea worth looking into. Have you looked at that at all?
I don't understand the question.
Well, countries, the Netherlands and whatnot, they have needle programs. They have, as a matter of fact, they have very permissive programs when it comes basically to just drug use in general.
Right.
And the claim is, and I haven't seen all the stats on it, but I've seen some that would indicate that drug use has gone down, that crime has gone down, that that needle trash has reduced. Why would it be working in those areas and not potentially work in, say, this area?
Well, now you're getting into nationally based problems. We have a drug war. We have the highest rate of incarceration in the world. We treat drug use differently at the fundamental level, whether right or wrong. And we have a massive welfare state. We have several generations of people that aren't necessarily working for a living. And so there's a certain, we're not a poor country by any means. So I think it's easy to get onto drugs and not hit rock bottom and have that need to work your way out of it. I think it's too easy to get access to charity, access to government services, access to welfare, and maintain a drug habit. I think we make it too easy. Because most people I know who are recovering addicts, they had to hit rock bottom at some point. They had to hit that rock bottom in order to orient themselves and get that self-determination to climb back up, dust themselves off, and get back into society. The fundamental problem with the needle exchange is that when an addict is about to hit that rock bottom where they could turn their life around and make that self-imposed determination, they're handed a needle. And that needle, every single time that drug addict shoots up, a little piece of them crumbles inside. And they get farther away from their goal, from that possibility of turning their life around.
You talk about, and basically you're right, it's sort of a two-tiered approach, two-tonged approach,
right.
Which almost might seem hypocritical because on the one hand you have a federal government which has to varying degrees, depending on what administration is in at the time, waged a drug war, which not only included a drug war on outside providers of drugs and inside providers and dealers and whatnot, but has imprisoned drug users. And right now we're at this point now where that is once again the norm.
Right.
Drug users get imprisoned because they're bad people. Right. And there's another side that says, wait a minute.
And there's something very wrong with a prison system where the drugs are smuggled in somehow. Prisons are only going to work for drug addicts if they actually clean the person up.
Right.
But if that's not happening, that's another huge problem, and that's going on way outside of Eureka. There's not much I can do about that.
Do you see that happening in Eureka as well? Like in the sheriff's jail? Or?
Most people that are trying to solve the problem of the needle litter, I don't think we're factoring in the jail system because the jail system is being heavily, in a very negative way, it's being impacted by state policy right now. The jails are under incredible pressure to let people out. And so when I'm talking about policy, when I'm trying to wrap my mind around what to do about our local area's needle litter problem, the jail is the last thing I even think of. Because right now the state is dictating to our jail how it's going to operate. And the state is having trouble with their budget. And so there's a lot of top-down orders that make our jail, it'd be very interesting if you could have somebody that runs the jail on. I think it'd be a very interesting show because the jail is probably a microcosm of what the problems are with the state. So I don't think you're going to find your solution there. I would love to be able to say, oh yeah, let's round up all the drug addicts and put them in jail and let them get cleaned up. But you and I both know that's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Our jails are not ready for that. They're not even close to ready for that. So I'm not campaigning on that because I don't think that's a solution that's going to happen.